Okay, so this is where we left off. Now notice that the color here shows, so depending on how your editor is working, so I'll just do this and leave this the way, just the way it was looking first. So you can see that it's showing a red red lines like this. So if it's showing red lines, it means that it can't recognize that from any of the imported classes. Okay, so because it can't recognize that, it means that this won't work. But when you right click, especially if you're using Visual Studio, and it should offer you some quick fixes. Particularly, you need to add the missing imports. So when you add the missing imports, this list here will be updated so that it includes the things that you've used. So since I'm using input, it's going to include input here as well, to include input here as well. So almost every time, if you're sure you've copied the code exactly the way it's written by the developers, especially from the documentation itself, but it still seems to not be working, make sure that the import is also exactly the same, because normally we leave out the import. So you just right click the line that seems to be having trouble, and then you say quick fix, just like the way I did it. So you highlight, you put your mouse on top, then you go to quick fix, and then you add all missing imports. Then when those are added up, it will be able to recognize the code. Okay, so now once that is done, you see that all of the lines are just in their normal color now, without the problem of them not being recognized. Even our mouse up function is now okay. It takes in an event mouse parameter. We'll be using this later on to determine, based on the information coming from the mouse, is this a left click or a right click. Right, but before we go on to do that, we will also add in the update function. So remember, the update is the one that's running per frame, about 60 times per second. So in here, later on we'll be adding a jump, but for now all we shall do is we'll put a condition to say if this start jump, okay, meaning if start jump is true, okay, remember the start jump right now is false, meaning that if we were to click, the user would not, the player would not be able to jump, because we've set it to false. The player is not going to jump, so we've set it to false. So in the update, we're only going to be jumping if the start jump has been set to true, and that's what we'll be doing when we click the mouse button. When we click the mouse button, this is going to listen that okay, we've clicked on it, particularly let go of it, and then in here, after it takes in what kind of mouse button we clicked in, it will then change from false to true, so that the player can actually start jumping, because we've actually clicked on a button. So that's pretty much how this is going to work. Now inside the mouse, the on mouse up event, we can then go on and create a check. So let me put a comment in here. We'll say check if the user clicked the left or the right mouse button. So for the left button, I think the left button is represented with I think this should be a 0. Then the right button should be a 2. So we'll be checking whether we get a 0 or a 2. If we get a 0, then it means we've received a left or if we get a 2, then we receive the right. So we'll do this. Okay, so we can then check the event mouse. Okay, so if event dot get button is 0, so this one checks for left. Okay, then we can write another one, else if event dot get button equals 2. So this one will be checking for right. Okay, so that's what this code will be doing. It's just going to be checking which mouse button has been clicked. So from the event, this one that's being passed here, okay, we get the button that was clicked, and then we check if it was a 0 or a 2. If it's a 0, we'll be making the player jump by 1. Okay, remember. Then if it's a 2, we'll be making the player jump by 2 steps. So it's going to be a bigger jump. So that's really what that is about. Now next up, we can also create a separate function that's just going to be making the actual jumps. Okay, so the player can jump using this function. So we say jump by step, right? Jump by step. So all this function needs to know is, are we jumping 1 step or 2 steps? So we'll call a number. Okay, so we'll be receiving a number that is going to be referred to as step. So this will either be calling this function with 1 step, or it will be calling this function with 2 steps. So that's what this code is there to do. Okay, so I think this is where I'll end for this one. I want to keep it extremely simple. So let's join in for the next one, so that we can add some additional logic, particularly for targeting and where to land. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, show your support. Thank you for watching.